Welcome, Hop Nation. Very happy to have my friend and colleague, Andrew Gregson, best-selling author of Pricing Strategies for Small Business. He's also one of the mentors and part of the core team of the Hop MBA, so someone that's definitely near and dear to us here at the Hop Performance Institute, but he's got his own consulting practice with Intent Financials. He's got a lot of education and experience behind him. He's got an economics degree from London School of Economics and also degrees from Simon Fraser and
Western Ontario.
So 3 big name universities, over 30 some plus years of experience. We'll leave it at that. And this book came out in 2007, 2008?
2008.
And you've just recently updated it, and it came out around October 15th, I believe.
September, that's right.
Okay, and it's called The Dark Art of Pricing, Deliberate Pricing for Profit?
That's correct.
Now, tell me, what's the change? What precipitated the change in the title, and what's different from, this, which was a best-selling book that was in the US, Canada, Europe, Russia, India. I mean, this has been a best-selling book by self-counsel around the world. Why the update, 10 years later, and change in name, and is there a change in focus?
Very much so, actually, Corey, because the old book needed a bit of an update. And since it was published, I've now delivered probably several hundred lectures and conducted workshops for people. And they've asked lots of really good and solid questions. And I've incorporated some of those ideas into the new book. The new book was meant to be purely just an update. But when I started doing it, it became a brand new book. And the title was actually originally meant to be The Black Art of Pricing.
I remember.
But the marketing gnomes at Self-Counsel Press, I think, are all Harry Potter fans. So they've renamed it Dark Art, which is fine. But it's a much grittier book. It addresses a lot of things about how to use the pricing strategies. The other book had a lot of theory in it, which is just great, and you need that. But it also addressed specific trades, and I didn't do that this time. This new book is a lot more about application and the questions you must ask. And it came with, if you noticed on the cover, and I don't think I got you a copy yet, so I should do that. But on the cover, they actually have an online questionnaire that you can go and fill in, and then send it off to me and give you some help.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure we include that link underneath in the show notes for people.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that.
Yep.
So let me ask the big question. You're this expert on pricing and finance and strategy. Why is pricing important, Andrew?
Well, I've done about 120 consulting assignments all through North America. Now, my observation has been that for most people, they don't know how to price. In fact, I deliver a lecture pretty much once a month at Community Futures, where I work, to people going out into start up their own business, and that is the toughest question they have to answer. And typically what happens is that they go to default. And again, this goes back to the consulting. It was the same thing. I'm going to follow the crowd. If they charge $60, I'm going to charge $60. Or if it's product-based, or they're hiring labor, then I'm going to put a markup on top of everything. Neither of them works particularly well and misses a whole load of opportunities. In following the crowd, that is guaranteed to go to mediocrity at best. If you're going to follow the markup principle, that's accountants, they love that, you are leaving a lot of money on the table. That was my observation, and I wanted to be able to change people's perceptions and give them some new frameworks about how to do it. So the first book has at least 20 pricing strategies in it that aren't used except by the big guys. the DuPonts of this world, the Walmarts of this world, the Apple of this world, the Qualcomm of this world.
Right.
Right? And that's now available to thee and me.
Excellent. So because I've had the luxury of seeing your work and knowing a bit, when it comes to pricing, is this something that really is, and your book specifically, is it related to accounting and finance, or is it something else?
No. There are obviously, there's math involved. That's no surprise. Is it to do with your costing, et cetera? Of course, it is all to do with that. But in the end, pricing belongs in marketing, not in accounting. And I give plenty of examples when I do my talks about how you let accountants run the company, it's not going to succeed. So the best way to do it is have everything done through marketing. And my example of this, and my proof of this, which I'll relate if you have a moment, is that in the 1950s, the executives at GM looked out of their window and they saw Italian and British sports cars zooming around the streets. And they said, we need one of these. So they went down to engineering and said, build us one. And then they went to accounting and said, cost it, and put a price tag on it. And they did. And they sold 700 cars. Not enough to keep people employed or a factory open, right? Across the river, Lee Iacocca looked down and saw the same thing. British, Italian sports cars driving around, said, we need one of these. So he walked down the hallway, waved at the engineers and went straight to marketing and said, what do people want? And they came back and said, we want a car that looks like this, does this, performs like this. And they built the Mustang. And it sold 1 million cars in 13 months, not 700, 1 million cars. So which is the better story? And the point is that pricing your product, marketing your product is all about finding out what people will want. It is not a Patrick Kinsella moment where build it and they will come, because they won't. You have to find out what your customers want. And that includes the price. So I address that when I'm talking to people in their companies and say, we don't know what they want to pay. We have no idea. So we have to learn how to sell our price, and we have to learn how to ask the questions. And ideally, you have 3 price points. And you talk about the one that is your dream price with all the bells and whistles and everything you've ever wanted. It is the Cadillac of your pricing system. And for some people, their wallets are just too thin to afford it. That's fine. So we move down, we strip out some value, we strip out some costs, and we sell that one. And if that's still too much for their thin wallet, we have the econo price, but we only have 3. And that is the trick. And that is a pricing strategy.
Excellent.
Okay.
So we hear a lot of business people talk about, following the market, and many times why people have left, and they'll blame pricing. What are your thoughts around why customers leave? And
in the 1980s, a fellow named Bob Thompson published a book called The Loyalty Connection. And I have robbed that book for all sorts of information that I use in my presentations. And the key that I got out of it was he asked people who had left their supplier, they were no longer customers, why did you leave? And then he turned around and asked the same question of the business owner and compared the results. Customers leaving were asked, it fell into 3 things essentially. And of course, we had to ask the important question, was it about price? But the customers left because of customer service, and they left because of the quality of the service or the product. And the numbers are revealing, because in every instance when it was dealing with customer service, they left 60% of the time because of poor customer service. The business owner thought that was it was a negligible item. 15% of people, it is not worth worrying about. And by customer service, I'm talking to somebody how do you answer the phone? How do you treat your customer when they phone up and ask a question or they have a complaint? What did you do? And one of the stupid things that we all do, we've all seen it, is that we put the poorest paid, least educated, least trained person in charge of the phones.
Right.
Yeah.
Change the whole customer service languaging to customer experience, because really it's not about the customer service, it's about the customer experience, which is everything from before they even make a connection, their research that now is primarily on the internet before they even come in. And a lot of them are more educated than the person selling them the product or service.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, we had a fellow who was about to start on his, I think it was a plumbing business. And I asked him how he was going to be different in the marketplace. He says, I'll answer the phone. And I said, I don't understand. He says, well, I phoned all of my competitors in town and none of them answer the phone. They all go to voicemail. So I will answer the phone. That'll make me different. How simple does that get? So anyway, Corey, the second item that came out in Bob Thompson's book was about the quality of the service and the quality of the product. So I promised that I would build you a really nice deck, and I didn't. It was substandard, that sort of thing. And that had the same sort of numbers. About 30% of the time, people left because you just didn't deliver what you promised. Business owners thought, no, it's more like 12 or 15% of the time. It's not a very big deal. They're just whiners and complainers, right?
Right.
But the elephant in the room, and had to be asked, was it price? For customers, they said, not important. It was only about 20% of the time did I think the pricing was too high. Business owners, on the other hand, thought that was an issue and a problem 70% of the time.
Wow.
So they're whining and complaining, I can't get my costs down, I'm having to charge too much, my competitors are beating me on the marketplace. And I'm looking at all of these numbers and saying, why don't you just answer the phone?
Yeah, what a disconnect.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wow. So we hear these stats around, the actual percentage of entrepreneurs and businesses that are successful.
Yes.
And, it's not a pretty number. Very few businesses are, last, let alone are successful. Another guy that we're looking to get on, Mike Michalowicz, his book Profit First, talks about, entrepreneurial poverty. And, there's a lot of people that are entrepreneurs and business people that aren't making money. They're poor business people. But what is it that businesses do that goes wrong, in your opinion? And I know this may not apply directly to your business, but you're consulting. I know you've helped a lot of businesses shift from, going when they realize they're going down that bad road, or helping them grow out of the poverty cycle that so many entrepreneurs are in.
I think it falls into two categories, actually, Corey. First of all, successful companies don't price for sales, they price for profit.
Yeah. Right.
And how many times have you bumped into somebody and asked them how the business is doing? They tell you that we just hit $1 million in sales this month. I really don't care. What I want to know is, how much profit did you make?
Yes.
And you're making substandard profits, and that's easy to find out. All you have to do is go and look at the people in your industry using NAICS codes, and Stats Canada produces all this stuff. So if you are below standard, it's your pricing. And that's the other part, because most companies, they do everything they can to hold down their costs. Great. And they do a lot of work to build up their sales, and then they chuck it all away by not having a decent pricing strategy. And that is the key. In the end, if you can get a successful pricing strategy that matches all your marketing so that you deliver what you want, what you built your expectations in your customer, you will, and make sure that you're making a profit at every level, and never discount. Never discount. Never discount.
Never discount.
We never discount. Strip value out and move to a lower price point if that's what you're going to do. But we teach people who are successful at Community Futures, their success rate is 65% success in 5 years. The success rate without doing anything, without any formal training, is 4%. So what does that tell you? Yeah.
Yeah, something's working.
Yeah.
So, tell us about how you got into the industry of consulting and even writing books, and your motivation behind doing what you do.
No, it was a bit of a challenge actually, because I was heading down to Vancouver. I was going to visit with my partner. We're going to visit a contract manufacturer. And this is the worst place in the world to be, as a contract manufacturer, because every job is different. So your costing is really out to lunch every single time. You're reinventing. We were driving down there, and I was being given the lowdown on what to expect when I came to this firm. And it went on for about 30 minutes, and I said, "Oh, I think I know what the problem is. Like every other business I've seen, I'll bet you dollars to donuts, they don't know how to price." And when I got down there, I found out in about half an hour that it was a mom and pop. They had lots of employees, but mom and dad ran it, and mom was charging $50 an hour, and dad was charging $60 an hour for the same thing. So they couldn't get it together. Pretty typical.
Right.
And not pricing for profit. They were just pricing to get dollars in the door, dollars into the bank account so they could pay their bills. It's that same old pull the hair out to try and solve the problems instead of thinking it through.
Well, and that's what happened to me, right? That's what
I noticed. But the challenge was that I came back and I said, and my partner says, "You should write a book about this. You know a lot about it." So I did. And then it ended up with all the colleges contacting me and saying, "Would you like to give a talk to our BA students or MBA students and our BCom students?" Yeah, of course. This is critically important. And my objective at my stage of my life is to teach as many people as possible about this avenue to profit, because everybody has figured out, and there are hundreds of books out there on sales, thousands of books on sales. There's thousands on how to cut your costs. And there's a handful, literally a handful on pricing. And those are the only 3 points in the triangle. There isn't anything else. Your costs, your pricing, and your sales. That's it. That's all there is.
Seems so simple.
I made it simple.
Which is why it's done so well. Now, one of the things we've talked about is how pricing is one of those foundational things, but the integration within larger organizations that would have, the accounting and finance function, your sales and marketing, as well as your operations and all of that. How do you get alignment within the businesses, and how does pricing come into that? And maybe strategies around getting to alignment, because, and we've talked, so
yeah.
In a lot of the large companies, the departments or functional areas operate in silos. So how do we get greater alignment and make sure that there is this pricing for profit, and quality and loyalty being thought of?
That's a change management project that you would undertake to change the culture of an organization beyond the scope of what I have done before, certainly beyond the scope of the book. But where I would be making the change as a consultant coming in and addressing issues of poor profitability or worse, I would attack first a place that I can get the best bang for the buck. So what I'd be looking at is going to the sales department and spending a day with them and teach them how to sell their price. They will immediately see a bump in their sales, which in theory should translate to profit. That allows them to then pay for the other things they need to change the culture of an organization. And the beauty of this approach is that by showing salespeople how to sell a price, there's going to be, it happens immediately. It can start that afternoon or the following day. The next sale will be that way. And from there is generated all the necessary internal capital plus a success to go out and say, we need to change the culture. Now we need to bring marketing to the table with sales. How often are they not at the table together? When are the accountants ever at the table? Right? Right, you're absolutely correct. We need everybody at the table. But of course, in any consulting exercise, it always begins with the owner.
Right. Well, you need buy-in at the top. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
Their veto power squashes anything.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely right.
Good. So, you've been successful in your own life and business. What have been what are some things that you do on a personal level or business level that you would call your own success habits, that if you could give a few tidbits to people, what are some of your personal success habits?
I delivered a lecture to Shannon School of Business in Nova Scotia. About 300 people there, BCom students, MBA students, and so forth. And I was going through a relatively long list of pricing mistakes. And some wag in the back stuck up his hand and said, "How do you know all this stuff, Andrew?" And I said, "I have made every single one of these mistakes I'm just talking about. But I learned. I didn't keep repeating them." And that to me is an important thing. You have to experiment. The reason that there are 20 pricing strategies in the first book is that your company may thrive on one or two or three of them, but not on the others. Find out which one will work is an experiment every single time. So we have to learn to roll with the punches and pick ourselves up and not repeat it, do something better, and improve upon our performances. And I've adopted that all through my life. Second point is, don't waste your time. Right? It's so easy. It's so easy to get bogged down in the pushing of paper around, or making pointless phone calls, or wasting time during the day. And there are days like that, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But it's when I was doing a lot of finance work, I'd have a lot of files on my desk and wondering how I was going to be able to do all of these files. And I conceived of a notion, and I put all my files up on a whiteboard, and I put 3 columns beside it, and I put 3 questions. What is the likelihood that I can pull this deal off in percentage terms? How much will I get paid? And when will I get paid? So if it was a low percentage, why am I bothering with it? Or it should go to the bottom of the pile at the very least. If I'm going to get paid a lot of money, or a tiny amount of money would influence where it goes in the pile, right? Why would I chase small deals when I should be chasing something bigger and ignoring a big deal? And of course, when? Because if the timelines are 2 years out, why am I worrying about it right now? There's something in the pile that needed attention now. That helped me steer my way right through all the financial work. And conceptually, what I'm doing is blocking my time.
Absolutely.
I use it well.
Time chunking.
Time chunking, that's correct. Yeah, and if you don't do that, it's so easy. The point I was going to come back to, like everybody else in this world, I have bad days. I have low days when I just don't feel like doing anything very much. And I have deliberately, all through my working life, set aside tasks that require no brain. Could be done by anybody, but I do them. And it might be my personal filing. It might be filing an income tax report or something. It doesn't require any intelligence to do it. So I leave those for my stupid days. and inevitably...
That's my takeaway. We all have stupid days.
But we all have them. But what I found is that I might do that for half a day, and then I feel better because I've actually got something off my list, because that to me is really important. And then I move on then to better projects. So that also is time chunking, but that's using that time profitably in a way that benefits me and my business.
Well, and realizing that none of us are perfect. The only time we walk on water is if it's frozen.
There you go. We're Canadians after all.
Yeah. It's about 15 below here today. How is it there?
Very similar. About 10 below.
Yeah.
But it's nice and sunny today. It's quite nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So with the last little bit of time we have, Andrew, what are some of the things that you want people to get out of the book, and messages you want to share before I give you one last doozy of a question?
Well, that one, okay. I think the most important thing, and I incorporate this into every single lecture, is the same thing. There's more than one way to price. There's more than 2 ways to price. There's dozens of them. And following what everybody else does isn't going to earn you the money that you really want. or perhaps deserve. So find a better pricing strategy. And the only way to do that is either do a ton of research or read my book or listen to me or ask me. So a purpose in my life now, my legacy, if you like, and we're always talking about those things, well, certainly at my age anyway, is how am I going to be able to multiply my knowledge, my information, my understanding of how business works? How am I going to multiply that out to people I don't even know yet? So that's the purpose of the book, purpose of these talks, purpose of my lectures, until I go completely gaga and then I can't do it anymore. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So you've packed in a lot around different habits and that, the time chunking and prioritization and, that vulnerability too, knowing that we aren't perfect and that we're going to cycle and to learn from mistakes. One of the things you said, a lot of those principles and ideas in the book came from, you made all the mistakes. And, I love that. Unfortunately, I bear some of those battle scars that you probably have as well that have made us stronger and drive us to do the work we do now by helping others. Because if we can help them get in front of that before actually getting the scar, I think that's why we do what we do.
Well, there's more scars to be earned. All the mistakes I've made doesn't mean there aren't more that you could have done, but I leave that to other people.
Absolutely. I want to go back to the book. We were talking about the pricing strategies and the importance. Now, one thing I know about the book, and I don't want to give away too much, but I think this is an important point. It was around the selling pricing and positioning the
yes.
book. And I know because I've seen a number of your speeches and lectures that you give, and it's not actually about price. It's not about building the price and talking to the price. And you talked, earlier about quality. Can you, without maybe giving away the farm here so you can sell some books, but what are the salespeople and the people who are delivering the customer experience really trying to sell? And how does the pricing come into play?
I'll talk about it as a mistake because that's easy, because we've all been there and we've all been on the receiving end of the same question. So you're busy as the salespeople making the sale, and you're 10 seconds in, sort of like, hi, how are you? I've come to buy a lawnmower. How much is it? If you answer that question, you've lost the sale. And it happens every single day. Because
monetizing yourself, because the minute you do that, it's a snake eating its tail. It's a race to the bottom, because then it's
correct
by price.
Well, what we've told them is that the only thing that matters is price. Is that really true? Is it not the service that's got offered by the firm? The fact we do our own repairs, that we're open on Saturdays, that we have a really nice machine with a 3-year warranty, that with really tough paint on it that doesn't chip like everybody else's does. All of these things you never got on the table. You just told them a price. And that was it. And that sucks, because now you've given up an opportunity. You've lost a sale right then and there. And it's now you're on the bottom of the well and you have to claw your way to the top if you're going to make it. It's far better, and I teach this again and again and again, and how to sell your prices. Get the value on the table first.
Yes.
Then the price comes later. Right. So if you do this correctly, you can build a rapport with the customer. After all, as a salespeople, you try and understand, what are you looking for? You don't want this machine. This one over here is going to wear out on you. You would need something a little bit more heavy duty. Or sorry, you don't need the heavy duty one because you're only a casual user. Use this one over here. The bearings on it are less robust, but it'll do perfectly for you.
And that's
building trust.
Earlier conversation around the customer experience.
Yep.
Right? Because they could think they want something, but sometimes the client just doesn't know what they want or need. And part of our job is to make sure that they get what they actually need, what they think they want.
Yeah. One of the toughest things that people have to confront right now is, as a retail store, is what I heard was called showrooming. So somebody goes in and has a look at all your stuff, checks the price, and then goes home and buys it cheaper somewhere else. But to me, you missed an opportunity because you never approached the customer and never chatted with them. How many times, and I'm building here on something, how many times have you bought from someplace because the guy that sold you the stuff answered all your questions and added more value because he knew what he was doing, right?
Absolutely.
It's very rare that someone will say, thank you very much, I appreciate your information, I'm going to buy it somewhere else. It just doesn't happen very often. It might be an 80-20 split, but the 80% of the time you're actually going to get the sale because you know what you're doing. If there's something goes wrong, who are you going to go back to? You're going to go back to the same guy that was so helpful and gave you the information. In fact, in 1986, there was an MBA thesis published at Simon Fraser University. And in it, the question was asked that, there was a big survey done on it about where would you call if there was a problem with you, and there was an appliance industry they were looking into. Where are you going to phone for repairs? Number one, 80% of the time, where I bought it. To me, you can twist that argument around and say, okay, you want to buy this on the internet, that's fine, but who are you going to call if there's a problem? Because everybody knows that those people never answer their phones, that you can go maybe on a chat line. The Q&As don't really answer your question, ever. Right? I have this experience. I know what happens. I would rather go to some place and say, Corey, I bought this mouse. It just doesn't work. What am I doing wrong? And he says, well, click this button here. And it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Funny you mentioned that. I had the endless loop where it kept sending some, and I won't say which organization, but
you don't have to. Most of them are like that now.
It was almost comical, except it was very painful.
Yes.
It's the comical part out of it.
That's right. So again, back to the things that one can do in the selling of the price. Getting value on the table is critical. That is the most important thing to do. And then not being worried about price objections. Because everybody, there's always a group of people out there who are going to say, no matter what it is, that, oh, wow, that's expensive, right? But there are ways to knock it on its head. In the 1970s, Nestle's was really late to the table in the instant coffee market. Sanka and a whole bunch of other firms are out there and dominated the marketplace. So they came to it and they taught their salespeople to go in to the professional buyers at the stores and say, I'm here today to tell you why you're going to buy the most expensive instant coffee on the market. Exactly. So as a buyer, you're instantly, okay, it's going to be expensive. Tell me why. You go straight to the value proposition. And if you sell that, you've got the sale.
Right.
So why wouldn't you approach it the same way? Now, the reason I use that example is Nestle's is a big, professional, highly trained organization like Xerox and all the other people, right? Why wouldn't you use what is successful for them in your business? Why not? Why not steal from the big boys?
Yeah.
So there are, I think, 13 on my list of things about how to sell your price, something like that. Typically in a talk, I only do about 7 of them because it becomes a bit unwieldy. And I say to everybody the same thing. If you can learn 3 of these, just 3 of them, your sales will improve. And by the way, because you're selling your price, you're not discounting. So you're going to make more money.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things you were talking about was that with the whole value, I think the 80s, 90s, there was the value added movement. And that is that's the new norm. And I don't see that. And this selling on value is what I see even over and above this is this providing value first. So giving them something that benefits them in terms of their personal needs, or teaching them something about their business that's helpful in advance of a sale or whatever, just and asking different things or bringing a value that they haven't seen, and it's because of the conversation. And then all of a sudden, because you're creating an experience before you're even going into really sales, you're doing this conversational and relational piece that is targeted. You aren't just, blowing sunshine up their ass and, rapport building. You're bringing very targeted, relevant, personally relevant information to them that gives them value first, which no one's doing that. The minute you do that, it doesn't matter what the price is, as long as it's not, if the value gap is not too wide that it's unjustified, right? It would be like, because we both get paid to do training and coaching, it takes a long time to get to the price point that we can charge for training and consulting.
Yes.
Right? There was a lot of, in the early years of our careers where you're doing stuff for free or for $500.
Yeah.
Right? For, small.
This is not more than that.
Yeah. And so you can't be someone who's at a stage like that trying to sell $25,000 a day. But you can be 2,500, right? As long as the value proposition and that's there. And I think that's where the whole pricing and alignment piece, you just have to make sure it's, and it's integral. We haven't really talked about integrity and authenticity, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how integrity and authenticity work with pricing. Because I'm sure, I know there's stuff in this book that address that.
There is. And actually, this has come up a lot lately, because we all recognize now when people are playing games with pricing. In Vancouver, there was a guy called Harry Hammer who was going out of business sale for 2 years. Every weekend there was a going out of business sale. Well, it was the biggest joke in Vancouver, right? And there are hundreds of these things. And we see so many of them now that you can spot them. And the people who are millennials are even more aware of when it's fake. They have a really good, strong sense of when it's fake. So when I talk to people about it, I say, you're not going to, like discounting, right?
Yeah.
You're going to discount, but not the way that it normally is done. You're going to take value off the table and drop the price because you dropped your costs. Well, how does that work? I mean, it's all about being honest, being transparent, having integrity, because we're serving the customer here. You can't afford the $5,000 item. That's quite all right. This one here is less money. It doesn't quite do all the things that the other one does, but it's a really good machine or it's a really good service. It's not a problem. And here you are building rapport with the customer all the way along, allowing them to choose the price point that they are comfortable with, that suits the size of their wallet. Because that's critical. Now, I don't want to be sold, you don't want to be sold on something which is way above my price point. I will resent that, and I will not do business with you anymore. And we've all had that happen to us.
Absolutely. And I think I would take it one step further. We don't want to be sold to. We want someone to help us buy.
Correct.
We don't want someone coming at us with commission breath. It's like someone that had a whole bunch of black coffee and a tzatziki garlic sandwich. It's like, oh, get away from me.
Well, it's typical. You see it all the time. And this is back to retail sales, but someone approaches you, you're in the shop and say, can I help you? Stupidest question you've ever been, right? Why would you ask that question? The answer is going to be no. Go away, leave me alone. But if you come up to them and say instead, have you been in here before? No? Well, let me show you around. Well, you have been in here before? What did you come back to look at?
Yeah.
You got them. You've begun the conversation. You start to build trust. You're not acting like a regular salesperson, so why would you follow all the other regular salesperson faux pas?
Well, and you in your book talk about differentiation. That's part of strategy and that. And I think part of differentiation starts in the conversation. If everyone is going up saying the same thing, you know, how are you today? Or can I help you? If that's what 80, 90% of the people are doing, you just ask or start a conversation differently. That in and of itself is differentiation.
That's correct. But it's the ability to take it all the way up to the levels of differentiation so you have your own unique selling proposition that allows you to sell the price that you need.
Yeah.
And establishing that price is critical. And to wrap this all back into pricing, pricing is a matter of communicating value. I believe that very firmly. If you can communicate value and get the customer to say, yes, that's what I was looking for, you can get your price. And you're not ripping anybody off. You're not discounting, so it's ripping off your wallet. You are actually providing with something where they see there is value offered. And how often do we get somebody saying, I got a great deal? Was it a really good price? No, I got a great deal because it's exactly what I was looking for. Right? And I couldn't find it anywhere else and nobody would help me. That's why we all hate department stores and why there are very few of them left. No training. Right? You run away as soon as they see somebody coming. Right? I'd rather deal with a small store that says, hi, Andrew, what can I help you with today? What you looking for? Have you been in here before?
Yeah. And, you know, I've been paying more and more attention to that lately in terms of, okay, their price point should be higher than, you know, some big box retailer that's just pure volume play. Yep. And low cost pricing strategy. And I'm finding it's within, you know, it's definitely not, I haven't seen more than 15%, but it's typically under 10%. And for most of us, you know, if it's a 10% difference, but we know we're going to be taken care of and the quality and the experience is going to be there, we will have no problem knowing with the security that comes behind that we're being taken care of.
That's right. That's right. So the best story I can tell you about value pricing, because it really is my hobby horse, is about DuPont. Mm-hmm. Again, learning from the big people, because they used to sell white irrigation pipe, and it was made out of a resin, and they pumped the stuff out of their factory all the time. And some bright spark in Fort Saskatchewan dropped in a few extra drops of some new stuff into the resin and mixed it in and turned it gray, but it wouldn't burst. The white stuff burst. So there'd be irrigation pipe, you know, imagine spray of water coming up. So if the accountants got a hold of this, they would have put a price on it of, it was $1 a foot. They've added about 3 cents worth of materials to it, so it would now been $1.03 a foot. Marketing got hold of it first and said, what problem are we solving here? And they went and taught the salespeople who were out in the field to go to the farmers who bought the irrigation pipe and say, I've got some new stuff. Do you remember the last time that your irrigation pipe broke? And they go, what do you mean? The last time it broke when you were up to your armpits in dirty, cold water, when you were digging with the front end loader and it was cold and wet and miserable and you hated every minute of it. And they, yeah. And they said, well, we have stuff that doesn't burst and it's $3 a foot. Do you want it? And they sold lots of it. Yeah. They made a lot of money because they put a value on the value proposition, which is you don't have to dig. It doesn't burst, right? So there's a value to the customer that they can monetize. And that's a critical part about that story. And it's why pricing belongs in marketing, not with accountants.
Excellent. I brought that all around here. You know, it's truly, this is one of those foundational books, and we're going to put up an image of the new book. We have it and really promote it. It's one of the top 10 books that, we recommend, obviously through HOP and CAP leadership here, because of how valuable it is for business people, and not just because you're a friend. I mean, it wouldn't be a bestseller if it wasn't a damn good book, and you wouldn't be getting a rewrite of it and an update like you have if it wasn't that already. And
thank you for saying that. I'm not sure it's a damn good book, but it's one of the very few out there that tackles this issue. And if there's no information, it's going to be the best one.
It is. It is that good. And I don't say that just to blow sunshine up your wazoo. It's, there's a lot of great stuff. And I know anytime you've spoken to one of our groups, there's one, you're entertaining as heck as a speaker, and that highly recommend. If there's people out there, looking for a great speaker and topic, or someone to come do a workshop, Andrew is actually fantastic. He provides entertainment with meat on the bone stuff that people can use across departments, which is something not a lot of people can say. So, I'm glad to call your friend and colleague, and I'm glad to see the updated book. I'm looking forward to getting a copy. I know we're going to be connecting soon. We're working on that new business profile psychometric, and getting ready for launching our big HOP MMBA next fall, and working together in a more meaningful way. So really appreciate your time. Before we go, Andrew, one last question.
Sure.
You talked a bit about legacy. So let's talk about, if you're sitting down at your 100th birthday celebration, who would you want to see there, and what would you want people saying about you?
Well, actually, I thought I'd only live to be 97 and be shot by a jealous husband. No, seriously, if I was there, I would want people to say that I was kind and understanding, and that I had a lot of information to give, and I was unstinting in giving it. Because really, that is the only legacy that I have. I like to make stuff, and I know a lot, but I really want to convey that to the next level. And I would be happy if that's what people were saying around my 100th birthday.
That's awesome. Well, I hope I'm one of those people at your 100th birthday who get to say something like that. And I can tell you, you're already that kind, giving person. Both Kirk and I here would definitely say that, and anyone I know that's met you would say that. So you don't have to wait till your 100th birthday, Andrew.
Okay, thank you kindly.
There, man. Well, thank you very much for your time today. We will make sure we put links to the book, and we'll have some of the tidbits in our show notes that come out. But thank you for your time today, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Corey. I really liked this discussion. It was great.
Thanks. Until next time, see you later, Hop Nation.